Hello everyone, welcome to the ONLE Networking Show. I'm James West.
And I'm Kelly West, and we are the co-founders of ONLE, the business network for people who like people.
Indeed we are. So, what are we talking about today? How to succeed and fail at business networking.
Yep.
We've already had a debate about that. Can you fail?
Yes. We'll go into more in a minute.
And then we're also going to go around the network because we did... Well, most of this show is based on Chris Mansfield. So professional networker, beloved Chris Mansfield. Yes, I did call him beloved. He did Only Talks, which is our monthly business topic discussion video. And he talked about networking to and through the networking room. So if you're familiar with networking, am I selling a product for the people in my networking group, or am I trying to get to the connections of their connections? But it led to loads of conversations about how to network and how to network online, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
You enjoy it?
Oh, very much so. I mean,
but you just love Chris Mansfield.
I do love Chris, yeah, of course I do. I find him fascinating, and I think we're very similar. I think we're very giving people. We love listening to people. We love finding out about people, and we give a lot of time, effort and energy in that space, which I think if you're not somebody who's prepared to do that, even to a 10th of what we do, you're probably going to fail. When
you say that, you mean helping people and listening. And,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, I think people are very much want to gain something before they're willing to give. And that's where failure can occur, can't it? So if you're somebody like us, like Chris, like all the wonderful ONLE members, you're kind of programmed to give first, which we talk about all the time, don't we?
Did you first go to networking and think, right, I'm going to help people?
No, gosh, no.
Of course you don't.
No
one does, do they?
I was 22 probably, so over 20 years ago, and I just went there because I wanted business. I didn't want to make friends. I had friends, I had family I loved. I just wanted to go there to bolster my business, and I did. It worked incredibly well, but how short-sighted is that?
Well, Chris Mansfield said it beautifully, didn't he? He said that the first time I went to networking and I started to recognise what they wanted me to do, and it was so ridiculous to him that the idea was, right, so you expect me to help these strangers, give them access to my contact book, and hope that they'll then help me in return. That feels quite, and by the way, yes, that is the answer, because once you then start on that process of helping people, it's a never ending kind of supply of help coming back your way. But that's not in keeping with the way that we want the world to work, is it? Today, people, I want to go to something, I want to return. I want to post something online, I want to return. Everything's so like immediate return, and that doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think so. But I think, whether it's ONLE, whether it's BNI, wherever it is you go, I think the umbrella of that brand, of that networking community or association that you belong to, that's your pull together. So that's you all coming together to represent that bigger kind of business. And that's what should enable you to want to help and support each other. Because quite frankly, we could go on LinkedIn and network. We don't owe anybody anything necessarily. I would argue we're probably less inclined to give on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Because it feels colder. But that's because it doesn't have the community brand that you're kind of bought into the ethos of, are you? So we joke about it sounding sometimes a little bit fluffy that we're the network for people who like people, but it's super important, and it's becoming more important as time goes on. If you're a networker that doesn't like people, and there's plenty of them out there, you're not going to fit into ONLE, which is great. You can go and network somewhere else, because when you do come into a community and you get that vibe, it's not just business. And we talk about this all the time. We won't go into it now, but we do training on this. We met each other at networking. Our best friends have come from networking. The possibilities are endless when you really do go all in with it.
Yeah.
But it's whether you do that or not.
Yeah, whether you get... Well, let's go through the why does it fail? And you can fail at networking because, again, it's whether you do free networking or paid for networking, and we won't get into that debate. We probably should say, shouldn't we? What you've got to ask yourself about free networking is that if people are going for free, A, do they value it? B, are they prepared to spend any money if they don't value the networking itself? That is a rhetorical question, because there will be good people that network for free. But that's a separate conversation.
Yeah.
But whatever kind of networking you do, you've got to invest time in it.
course.
So if you don't get anything as a return, whether it be support or business is the most obvious one, at some point, arguably it's a failure. And I wouldn't disagree with that necessarily, would you?
No, not at all. I mean, you talk about the face-to-face cold calling. I actually had a conversation like this with a member this week who said that he'd realised networking wasn't for him. And he said, believe it or not, cold calling is much more lucrative for me. And I was like, but if you're going into a network and you're meeting new people, a relatively new member, you're at the cold calling stage. So if cold calling is your optimum marketing vehicle, new entry into a network, essentially to begin with, is a cold calling environment until you get to know those people and you start to warm up those relationships. So my kind of argument there is that's your prime then. You should be able to convert. So if you're great at cold calling, entry into a new network, be it only BNI or anywhere, you've got your optimum space.
Because they're not cold, are they? In the sense of at least everyone's kind of given permission for you to have a conversation with them.
Well, they're kind of one level in, aren't
they? And this comes from Brian Hilliard, doesn't it? But why do people fail? Because they go networking and think that it's a form of face-to-face cold calling.
Yes.
So, yes, I'm at a network, so I've kind of given you my permission to have a conversation with me, but I didn't sign up to get pitched at.
And that's the difference.
And people do that, don't they? They just kind of go around the networking room and going, hello, this is me, this is what I sell. Do you want it? No, I'll move on. And then they just keep repeating and repeating. That is not, that's no fun, because everyone that you meet is going to be like, oh, here comes so-and-so trying to sell at me. And B, you probably will get a return eventually, but that's the same as cold calling, isn't it, in the strict sense?
Sure. And there's a place for those people. I'm sure they gain what they need to, otherwise they wouldn't have that behaviour. I don't know, a percentage of them probably don't, depends if they're nice people deep down, but you have to find the environment that fits, doesn't it?
Doesn't work in our network. Really stands out in our networking. Not enough people here to buy from me, not enough big businesses. Having that attitude of, well, how many people are in this networking group? That is my sales border. That's the limit of the room. And we've talked about this before, but every person knows on average 150 people. Therefore, take the people in the room. If you want to be mechanical about it, take the people in the room times that number by 150 is the first layer of connections beyond that room. Yeah. So, if you only think in the room, you're going to be thinking, oh, it's not enough. There's not enough there.
Yeah, definitely. And probably a good example of this, we've just been talking about a party invite that we've just got, haven't we? So we've just been invited to one of my private clients' Christmas events, and the email come out and there's 7 of us on the list. 6 of us are only members, and the one person that isn't an only member made that initial connection to me, to that client, who I've then passed his details on to all the other people on that list who are in only, who have all benefited from business. So you can't be short-sighted enough to think that it just ends there. Sam was the person that introduced me originally, and I'm ever grateful for Sam because he has enabled an awful lot of work for a lot of people in that small space. So you can't be so laser focused on, hang on, where's this coming from? Because all of those people don't know Sam, but it's thanks to Sam that they got that business in the first place. So when you track back, it will track back to me, probably for most of those people, but it goes back to Sam and it will go on beyond that, won't it?
Yeah.
So, just networking is there to support, to accentuate your business, to provide you with relationships and to provide you with business. But when you are tracking it, you have to be mindful that there is a bigger picture that sits around it that you probably won't get that deep into.
Walk in the room, picture everyone, I'm done, I'm out. Yeah. What was the point of that? That's how you're going to fail at network, because that's not networking, that's prospecting. Yes. Rather than networking. And then the third thing, the reason why people fail is that failing to help people but expecting to get help in return.
Yeah.
It's always easy to think of these things in a face-to-face environment. It's like walking into a room of strangers going, hi, I'm new here. Can you do me a favour?
Yeah, you can do it.
Like, why do we think that's going to work? And, the classic example of, hi, I'm new to your network. I'd love more Instagram followers. Can you all go and like me? Can you all go and follow me on Instagram? Like, what? Have you done? You're not prepared to actually, And there's a really, by the way, if you want to go networking and get more Instagram followers, don't ask for people to follow you. There's a really easy strategy. You've then got 30 people on a list. Go and find them on Instagram, follow them, comment on their latest post, then send them a direct message. If they then reply and you get into a conversation, most of them will probably follow you by default anyway. And if they don't, ask them if they will follow you back. That's how you get followers via networking.
Where would you sit with, obviously that's a really good example. So you've got the attendance list, you've actively said, I want you to follow me on whatever platform. What about if you went through that list and yes, you actively followed a couple of people that were relevant to you or your industry? How would you feel about receiving a message to say, oh, James, I've looked at your Instagram profile, I've given you a follow, I really would like to be connected. Would you consider following me back with a link? How would that sit with you?
Yeah, as long as it's been personalised and not done in that.
Yeah.
And I can count on one hand the amount of times that that's happened.
But you do it, don't you? Because you feel like there's a connection there and there's a reason to do it. Somebody's put themselves out in order to gain something for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the right way to do it, isn't it?
Right, enough about the negative. I think let's move on to the positive side of it. So we've come up with 4 steps to networking success. So realising the scale and the magnitude of what a network can bring you. You kind of touched on this.
We've covered that in reverse, haven't we?
We've covered it in reverse, but really just to bring that to the fore again, I do tire of hearing people say, I speak to the same people. That's the point. Yeah, you see the same adverts, you see the same branding, you see the same messages from big businesses. Why wouldn't you expect to see that in the same space for small businesses? It works in the same way. We have to have those touch points with those people multiple times, more than ever, in order for them to even start to realise you're there. So the reason that you see the same people all the time at networking is because it works. And those people that go networking understand that they've got to be there, because if they're not there, that's when they're not being recognised. So, realise that, as you've said, that small group doesn't mean it's a small group. It's what goes on beyond that as well.
Definitely. And then this is one of the hardest things at networking is taking away your own predisposed bias or preconceptions about people. Will that person help me? And we do this all the time. There's a simple way to kind of think about this. So if I said to you, does your name, job title and business name tell me everything I can ever know about you? And you're going to look at me and go, of course not. I've worked in this place. I've got experience here. I know these people. Well, that's the way you've got to approach people at networking. I call it networking guess who, where we clack down the times. You're not useful. You're not useful. Once you've understood that everyone can potentially help you, if not now, tomorrow, because they might have connections or they might end up somewhere else or they worked somewhere previously. Once you've understood that, you then go into conversations with people with a level of respect. You treat everyone with a level of interest. That is when you start unlocking the power of the network.
Yeah, and I think I spoke with somebody yesterday about this who is really transitioned from in-person to online, because he said he's fed up with going into the room and talking to someone and they're going like this over his shoulder waiting to see who's coming up behind him. And unfortunately, I think I'm hearing more stories like that, because our time is precious, and when we put ourselves out to go and do something, we're almost manically trying to make sure that we're making the most of it. So I think with whichever environment you're in, just remember you're with that person, and if that conversation isn't clicking or it's not somebody you want, don't waste either of your time. There's nothing wrong with saying, should we stop there? I don't think there's any need for us to continue the conversation, because we talk about this all the time. You don't have to get on with everyone. So it's about respecting the good and bad in conversations, isn't it? And making sure that you're respecting that person.
I bet most of the time when those conversations get really awkward is because someone's pitching.
Yeah,
like,
I would imagine so.
They've leapt straight to right, this is what I do. Do you want it, or can you help me?
Well, character clash, it's going to happen, but
that's slightly different, though, isn't it? There will be certain people where you're not pitching at each other, but you just don't get along. Yeah. And I think
nothing wrong with that.
It's much easier online to control that as opposed to in person, where you get backed into a corner.
Well, we've sort of said this before, and I've got a good few examples of this. There are people that I would have actively avoided in the room that I had no choice but to be in a room with when online networking started, and a couple of those people are now very close friends of mine. So it just shows you that having to be in a situation with someone and having to listen to them, because I'll hold my hands up, I probably wouldn't have done had that been in an in-person space. I wouldn't have had two of my very closest friends in my sphere.
That's the random breakout room conversations, isn't it? We used to choose strategically when we went to networking, right, I'm going to have a one-to-one with that person. And again, it was probably based on, because we thought they might be able to help us by doing the breakout rooms that we do online. You've taken that away because some of those great connections just happen, don't they? Oh, I didn't realise I'd get on with you. So that's the first two steps. Recognise the scale, realise that everyone can potentially help you, so treat them with respect. And then the third step is help first. So again, we've covered this in reverse, but just go in with an attitude, I'm here to listen, I'm here to try and work out how I can help all of the people that I meet. By the way, you won't be able to help all of them. You can give everyone a like and a comment on their post, though. That one's really easy. We didn't have that in the face-to-face networking. But you can't help everyone, but at least endeavour to find out what it is that you can help them with.
And maybe have a think. Like, I can think of a few people who just popped into mind as you were talking. When you're at a networking meeting and somebody says, I don't have any asks, but I just want to recognise X, Y, and Z. That's so refreshing. And those people, for me, stick in my mind, and I know they're incredibly good networkers because they don't want to actively be taking all the time.
Yeah. If someone says, oh, I'm here at this network because I'm here to learn and meet good people, are you going to be intimidated about talking to them? No. Not at all. You're going to be like, oh, good, I hope I get to speak to that person, as opposed to the person that's like, hello, do you want this thing? I want to just sell.
Well, I know for a fact that those few people that have sprung to mind, they will actively reach out to book in one-to-ones with people. And I would imagine they're the first ones that get a yes. Yeah.
So help is step 3, just endeavour to help people. And then step 4, and this is very much based on Chris's education, then know what you're asking for. Because you can't avoid the fact that if you just say, well, I'm looking for everyone or anyone that might want to buy my services, it doesn't work. You've got to be more precise in terms of what you're asking for help with, or an ideal client connection, that kind of thing. But as Chris was at pains to point out, don't ask until you've done step 3, because you're wasting your time. We don't like helping people that just turn up asking for help. And that's it. That's the whole process, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. If we could highlight that one and put it in neon lights, and that's important. Knowing what you're asking for. And I do speak to so many people that don't know what they're asking for. And again, it stands out a mile when you've cracked your introduction. It's polished, it's memorable, and I know exactly who you want to speak to. So yeah, really valid point.
There you go. So that's 4 things you should do. A few things you shouldn't do. Hope you have good network. Hope you have good networking.
Enjoy your networking.
Enjoy your networking. Brilliant. So it's time to go around the network, pick up some wisdom from the ONLE members. We are going to start with Spencer in Scotland. This was very wise. He talked about networking and people not perhaps always being present or valuing it, expecting to turn up, not really do a lot, but still expect a result. But the way he expressed it, he said it's exactly the same as buying gym membership, not going to the gym and wondering why you're not getting a result.
Not much more you can say. Spot on.
He's a clever guy.
He is a clever guy, yeah. This one, I've bored people with this one because I've talked
that's a
about
great way of introducing it.
But in case there's 1 or 2 people that haven't heard this story. Lovely Joe Parker, he's co-host of ONLE Kent, been a member with us for a long time, great guy. He asked for contacts to Sky or BBC sports presenters on one of our calls recently. And after that initial, okay, Joe, good luck with that, I suddenly realised I had somebody I could connect him to. And I think it was the 3 or 4 other people in the room also put in the chat box, yep, I can connect you to. I think that amounted to 3 contacts because I think a couple were a crossover. And I know he's had conversations with at least one of them and he's teed up another one for the future. So tall orders are not tall orders if you're in the room with the right person. It's just a case of keeping on asking for it. Weirdly, that was the first time he'd asked for it, but he's asked for it since. Not sure how much success he's had, but the point there is just keep asking because you will end up in a room with somebody that can give you that thing.
Yeah, those layers of connection. Because there was nothing in that room that would have indicated,
No.
you know, you're not at a sporting event or a media event, so you'd think...
I'm the least sporty person you're going to meet, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly, great example. And then the final point, Jodie Newman, the brilliant Jodie Newman, she took, because we were talking about this notion of not selling to the networking room, you know, trying to position something to sell beyond the room. But she made a great point. She said, you've still got to sell your story to the people that you meet. If they don't understand your story, i.e. your proposition, what value you provide and who that value is for, how are they ever going to be able to pass you on, recommend you outside? I thought that was very clever.
Yeah, spot on.
So, yeah, we just got some very precise, excellent points from the members there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
thank you, everyone.
Well done, members of ONLE. Good job. So there you go. That's the ONLE Networking Show. Please like, subscribe and share, and we'll see you again next month.